Great. Welcome everyone to this community event here on Zoom webinar, as well as being streamed live over ACB radio on the live event channel. As always, if you'd like to learn more about ACB, please visit our website, acb.org. And if you want to see what other community events are coming up, just check out the homepage, and there's a list available through the homepage of all the community events, as well as you'd like to learn about other items coming up on ACB Radio, please check out acbradio.org. So our event here this evening that our amazing Zoom host, Nat, and our folks on ACB Radio are here helping us put on is getting to know Achilles International. So we titled it Learning to Fly with Achilles International. So first we'd like to run through and introduce our guests and then learn a little bit more about Achilles. So again, my name is Clark Rockfall, and first, Emily, if you could please introduce yourself and your role with Achilles.
Sure. My name is Emily Glasser, and I am the president and CEO of Achilles International.
And Emily, thank you so much for reaching out to ACB and joining us here this evening.
I'm thrilled to be here, as we all are.
That's great. And let's just run through the lineup here. So along with Emily, we have Ellie. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ellie Cox-Nihill, and I am the Director of U.S. Chapter Development.
Great, thank you, Ellie. And Francesco.
Hey, my name's Francesco, and I'm the Director of Try Achilles.
And Francesco, your partner in crime here this evening, Zoe.
Hi, I'm Zoe Costanzo. I'm Francesco's guide.
And I'm not sure if we have Leo, but if Leo Williams is on. So we'll keep working to try to get Leo on. And next we'll move on to Chloe Klein.
Hi, I'm Chloe, and I am a guide with the New York City chapter.
And Chloe, you've guided Leo, correct?
Yes.
Great. And Gloria Suarez?
Hi, I'm Gloria Suarez, and I am the president of the Houston chapter and also an athlete.
And Gloria, that's some late breaking news, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
And we also have Juan Sordo.
Yes, hi, my name is Juan Sordo, and I serve as a guide to Gloria, but all our members in the Houston chapter, Houston, Texas chapter as well.
All right. And is there anyone that I've missed?
I think you got everyone.
All right, great. So Emily, tell us a little bit about Achilles.
So Achilles International, first let me thank ACB and Clark and Eric Bridges for inviting us to be with everyone this evening. We're really thrilled for this upcoming conversation. We know it's going to be just, a lot of fun and informative. Achilles International is a nonprofit with a global presence. For over 3 decades, we have been working with people with disabilities, providing athletic programming and social connection throughout the world. Over the course of our existence, we've touched over 150,000 lives across the globe. On an annual basis, we're reaching 15,000 people with disabilities, again, providing them athletic programming and a community of support. Many of our representatives you see here today, and some of these relationships that have been fostered in parks and on tracks around the globe.
And Emily, how long have you been in your current role with Achilles?
I have been in this role for a year, Clark. I replaced, the founder, Dick Traum, who's a legend in his own right.
Yeah. And did you have a relationship with Achilles prior to joining the team?
I did. I served as a volunteer in the New York City chapter for several months, and I was primarily guiding a young man who had autism and was nonverbal.
And just share a little bit what drew you to Achilles initially.
Clark, I'd say that I believe firmly, as I think our organization believes, that athletics transcends physical abilities, race, religion, socioeconomic status. And I believe that through sports, we are unified, we can create community, and all of us have the capacity to achieve and should be enabled and allowed to do so. So what drew me to Achilles is that it's a very inclusive, very positive, very forward-moving, forward-thinking organization as we work to build and strengthen communities across the world while fostering a common understanding of the capacity that exists in all of us to participate in athletics and achieve.
And Emily, you've mentioned Achilles nationwide as well as global reach. What's the structure of Achilles? How do you all do that? Is it all virtual or all online?
No, so Clark, we have a network of chapters. In this country, we have 27 chapters in roughly 20 states across the country. These chapters meet on a weekly basis when runners, people with disabilities get together with support guides to train. Generally, our athletes are setting goals to participate in certain races. And so it's a very high touch in-person program. You know, COVID-19 forced us, as so many other organizations, yes, a little something to pivot. And so we very quickly did. And super proud of our staff, including Francesco on the call today, who, you know, together created some terrific content that you can find on our website, www.achillesinternational.org. Some online workouts and training programs. We just hosted our first virtual race because we want to keep our community active and connected. We know how important it is. So we have taken the road online, and we're doing an amazing job at it, but we are all eager to come back together and meet for workouts and races soon.
And that's really exciting. And at ACB and our state affiliates and local chapters are always looking for ways to be more engaged and more active. So certainly we want to encourage folks to investigate whether there's an Achilles chapter in their local area. Is the website the best way to do that, Emily?
It is, Clark. On the website, you can find our chapter locations, and if there is not one where you are, please still follow our path to become a member of Achilles, and we can get you connected to the nearest chapter, or at least just reach out to you and engage you in some of our virtual hangouts right now and conversations, but then just make sure you become a part of the family. And again, we have all this content online right now too for people to keep active and keep training for you know, any kind of upcoming races or goals that they've set for themselves.
Awesome. And Emily, either for you to answer, or we could bring Ellie up here as well. Say someone doesn't want to race. You know, whether it's they're just not interested in racing, but they do want to be more active. Are there different levels of activity and engagement you can have with Achilles outside of racing?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry, Ellie, you go right ahead.
That's okay. It's okay. We have walkers, you know, people who like to walk. And, you know, for somebody who, you know, maybe at first doesn't even know, you know, if they could, you know, can ambulate, you know, you just take it like literally one step at a time. And the volunteer guides are there to encourage you. And sometimes just going light pole to light pole is a big success. And so, you know, all levels, all abilities we support. Yeah.
That's great. I know a big part of the ACB conference and convention every year is our ACB walk. And usually it's whatever city we're hosted in. This year we had to do it virtually, much like you guys are having to do. But good fundraiser, good way to kick off the week and have everyone, you know, get the blood and get the juices flowing for a week of, you know, camaraderie, community, learning and advocacy. So we'll certainly need to stay in touch with Achilles whenever we can hold in-person conventions again to help get folks connected, not only in that jurisdiction, but connect with Achilles once they're back home as well. So Emily, thank you so much. I think we'll shift over to our panel here. And because we do have Ellie front and center, Ellie, tell me about your journey with Achilles and how you got started getting involved with Achilles.
My story is an unusual one. It was a long time ago. I always say 1996, but it might have been 95. It was the first time I was ever depressed. I was going through a divorce. No one in my family had ever divorced. All my friends were not telling me anything really, but there was a certain, it was a tough time for me, okay? My now ex-husband was a marathoner. So in a last-ditch effort to have something in common, I decided that I would try to run, and wasn't going well. I wound up at 90th and 5th Avenue, and I was feeling rather numb. And there was a lot of people there, and now that I think about it, they were, you know, an interesting looking bunch. People with canes, people with chairs, people, you know, it was the Achilles group. And in Manhattan, you can stand next to a person or in a group and nobody thinks anything of it. And then I didn't know what was happening. The group went away and I was still standing there and, you know, just standing there. And a blind man came. I suppose he was about 25 minutes late for the workout, and the gentleman that was running the workout, who I now know to be Ken Trush, but I didn't know at the time, he just, you know, looked at me, he pointed at me and he said, "Do you run?" And I said, "A little." And he said, "Take him for 4. And I did, "What are you, okay, what?" And he was like, "You know, the loop, it's a 4-mile loop, it's a circle." So as he's talking to me, he's taking the guy's backpack off and getting his tether out and taking his cane away and puts the tether. He's like, "This is the tether. You go and you come back and then you'll be here again." And I was like, okay. So that was interesting. And in Central Park, everyone calls out to you. They say, "Go Achilles." And I thought you had to wave. And that wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. I was supposed to be mindful of this gentleman that I was guiding. And I ran him into a curb and he kind of stumbled around a bit. And from there on in, I didn't know, I was so apologetic. I was boring him basically. And we got to a point where he stopped running and he faced me and he said, "Did you see my move?" And I said, "Yeah, what?" And he's like, "I stumbled, but I did not fall. You gave me the opportunity to use my move that I learned in jiu-jitsu. So I want to thank you. Now let's run." And that was a very big learning experience for me, eye-opening, shall we say, where I was no longer depressed. At the end of those 4 miles, my depression had lifted and I had a story to tell and a place to go every Saturday morning if I wanted to, which I wanted to from there on in. So that was my beginning. And then of course, you know, I, you know, came back for as much as I wanted. But I did not join Achilles as an employee until 2008. So Achilles basically saved me twice.
Yeah.
Once in 1996 and once in 2008 when I couldn't get a job anymore.
And what a great learning experience for you as a guide, and a great partnership. Francesco, was your first time running with Achilles as adventurous as Ellie's?
Oh, it's totally, I mean, first of all, I had never heard that story before, Ellie, so that's awesome to hear. But I found out about Achilles in a grocery store checkout line, and basically I was waiting in line with food, and this guy, total stranger, just walked up to me and started talking, and I thought he was trying to sell me something at first, but it turns out that he was just trying to plug this running group in the park. And a few weeks after that, I showed up, and they asked me, "Oh, how much do you want to run?" And the shortest distance I heard people say was 4 miles. And before that, the furthest I'd run was like chasing the ice cream truck down the block, right? So I had no idea what 4 miles was, let alone 1 mile. But I told them, "Yeah, let's do 4 miles, whatever pace." And I took off and promptly died at 800 meters down, and it was a very long, painful 4 miles. But we got it done, and that was the first time.
So you had no history of racing or training prior to joining Achilles?
I powerlifted. That was my competitive thing in high school and college.
Gotcha. And
So,
now
literally the opposite.
Yeah, and now you're a triathlon hopeful for Tokyo, correct?
Yeah, triathlon or cycling. We'll see.
Nice. And how are you taking having the games, the Paralympic Games, postponed until 2021?
Yeah, honestly, I'm pretty excited because as I just said, I'm pretty new at the sport. I've only been, racing competitively for 2 or 3 years. So any year or any extra time that I can get, I think it's a huge advantage over my competitors who've been, training and racing for 10, 20 years, most of them. So I'll take any time I can get.
There you go. And tell us about your role with Achilles, being the director of Tri Achilles.
Yeah, so I joined Tri Achilles as an athlete first, and that's the multi-sport side of Achilles. So it's mainly triathlons, but cycling events as well, and duathlons, things like that. And last year, around the time when Emily took on, actually a little before, they were looking for a new Tri team director, and I was on the team and wanted to step up a little bit, so I got the job, and here we are.
That's awesome. And any words of advice that you'd say to anyone thinking about looking into Achilles or other programs to be more physically active?
Yeah, honestly, I'd say the biggest thing is just give it a try once, because the thing that held me back the most was I just could not picture myself being active, especially, powerlifting. You're very in a controlled environment. You're not used to entrusting someone with your safety and running, literally blindly without even a cane. So it's kind of daunting, even if it's not running, it's any sort of athletics, right? So I would just try it once before you decide to give up on it. Don't just pass because you think how it'll be. Just try it and see how you like it.
And we've got a couple guides here, Zoe and Chloe. I'm noticing a theme for guides in the New York area. Zoe, what has it been like for you working with Achilles?
Thank you for having me. Working with Achilles has been great. I think the theme that everyone keeps coming back to is just what a community it is. And I came to Achilles looking for a team to join, people to run with. I'd been running and doing triathlon for a lot of my life, and I'm from the West Coast, so New York, I didn't really have anyone that I was running with, but when you're in Central Park, you always see the neon t-shirts and you always hear about Achilles. So I just thought, oh, I should give it a try. And so eventually I finally showed up to a practice about a year ago, actually. And from there, I think I was just suckered right in. It was so much fun. It's really hard to describe how welcoming and exciting and what a great community Achilles is. it's about the sport, but it's also so much about the social connection you make and just the friendship and being able to go out and be empowered and do your thing in Central Park. I think I was 1 mile into a 4-mile loop and they already had me on Achilles Kids and they were talking me into the triathlon team. So it was a very, very easy sell. And I think I've been at everything since. So.
Share with us a little about those other programs that you just mentioned. So Achilles got started in running. Francisco talked a little bit about Try Achilles, the multi-sport side, and you just mentioned Achilles Kids.
Yeah, so Achilles Kids is a program for children primarily under 18, although there are some who they start in Achilles Kids and then they just kind of grow up in the program and they stay in it and they move into adults. But it offers different types of structured sport for children with disabilities. Of all types. We have a lot of kids on the autism spectrum that are in that group right now, but anyone can join, and it's really to encourage the same as in the adult program, social connection, empowerment through sport, community, and really connecting kids with other kids and with people that can mentor them and kind of help them grow and learn through the sport. So they meet in Central Park every 2 weeks and kind of go through a structured program, and then some of them start to train for races. And right about the time that I just started joining Achilles, one of the guides needed someone to take her place in training with one of the kids for his first half marathon. And so as I said, I was very easy to say yes to anything and had a ton of fun. And we went through a marathon training plan together. We did all the long runs. And then in Central Park in December, we went out and ran his first half marathon. It was so much fun. But yeah, I think it's very similar in some ways to the adult program and getting kids out and just providing a place where they can have fun safely, but also opening the doors to new things that maybe they wouldn't have had opportunities to try before.
And a broader question for all of our guides here this evening, but we'll start with Zoe and Chloe. How many individuals would you say you have guided, and what sort of variations do you use in your technique to best serve the individual?
I can go first, or?
Go for it.
Okay, so I primarily now guide Francesco, but at the beginning I guided quite a few different athletes. I happened to start guiding a blind athlete, and so I sort of stuck with guiding other visually impaired athletes because it's a similar technique, and I was comfortable using the tether, and I can be quite bossy, so I was very good at talking about everything that was happening as it went, for better for worse. And so I'd say it varies from athlete to athlete, just depending on what they like, and then it varies from disability to disability on what sort of they need to help them reach their goals. So guiding somebody who has a mobility disability might need different types of physical assistance from someone who's visually impaired, and you might run on a tether, but the kind of like social connection and the friendship is the same. It's just sort of building that trust with someone and building a camaraderie and learning what they find useful and helpful and what you find useful and helpful.
And Chloe, was that similar for you?
Yeah, I primarily guided Liol, except for last year's New York City Marathon, where I guided a Norwegian athlete. Sorry, my bird is making noises in the background. But we used a tether, and just that was what worked best for us. And yeah,
okay,
pretty much.
And Juan, how about you?
I will agree with both comments. Also it's just, having a feeling of what the athlete is all about. I mean, I've guided, Gloria, who's in a wheelchair. I've guided, individuals who are not able to see. And really it's just about having that, ultimately it comes down to having that connection with that athlete, right? And you have, depending on the length of the sports. So I've done 5Ks, I've done walks, I've done marathons. So you kind of figure it out as you're going along with the time as well, and the athlete, because you kind of connect, right? You have this connection that's very unique, I guess, to the the actual run itself. So it's more about just connecting with the athlete, and figuring it out from there. Trust me, you'll figure things out because they will tell you, and you have time to chat along the way. So it's just, I guess you're learning how to guide someone, but you're also learning about that person. So everything kind of just comes in together at the end. So it's a really good experience.
And from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of two-way communication that goes on. So it's not just the guide telling the athlete where to go or what to do, but it's also up to the athlete to relay information about if they have any questions, how they're feeling, and things like that. So the guide has a better understanding, correct?
Yes, that's at least from my end. Yes, it is, and it's very unique. So I just love it. So yes.
Yeah. And Gloria, how long have you been involved with Achilles?
I joined in February 2018, and actually the reason why I joined was because of Juan. He kind of introduced me to Achilles. I had no idea Achilles existed, and after I suffered my injury, I fell into a really big, deep depression. I gained a lot of weight. I was really depressed. I was just down. And Juan ventured on into doing all these marathons, and he even did the MS. I mean, and the races that I could go, I would be there and I would cheer him on. And one day I told him, I wish one day I could do something like this. And he's like, you can. And I was like, no, I can't. There's no way. Look at me. I'm in a wheelchair. And then he's like, do you see that person over there? That person is blind. Do you see? And then he started mentioning like people with disabilities are able to do, sports and different things. So he got me in contact with our Houston chapter, and that's basically how I started. Bernie was the director when I joined, and she had this way of just, it felt like home. Like I literally looked forward to going to the workouts, and I was excited. I would get up, get ready, and I'm like, who are you? You're excited to go work out? Like that just wasn't something that I did. So Bernie really, really made me feel like I was part of the family, and I just kept going back and back and back. And then I would hear the talks about the 5Ks and the 10Ks and the marathons, and I would get intimidated because I was like, there's no way. I'm just going to do the workouts and kind of stay back here. And then Stephanie pushed me to do my first 5K, and I did it. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like slowly, I mean, I just started enjoying the races and just everything. And then Juan, last year, he got me to do my first marathon, and my first marathon was the New York Marathon. So I did it. He was my guide. I mean, it was just like, it was an amazing experience. And then I came back to Houston and I did the Houston. And then ever since then, before COVID, I've been doing all these races, and then now it's virtual. So I signed up for all these races. I mean, I wake up every morning, I go do my workout, and it's just a routine. And when I don't, I feel weird. We just got back we went with my family to the country, and I know my family hated me because they were like, oh my God, is she really going to make us walk? Is she really going to make us, but it was just, I really, really enjoy it. And Achilles I've lost about 70 pounds. And I've done things, it's not just the races. I love horses. I did horseback riding, but I think they're pretty from afar. I rode a horse. I did kayaking, skydiving. During the summer, we tend to do our fun activities. Obviously, this summer we weren't able to, but hopefully after the whole COVID thing is gone, we'll go back to our regular programs. But yeah, I mean, Achilles has really, really, really just changed my whole life.
And Gloria, you had your injury in your mid to late 30s. You're a mother.
Yeah.
Did you have this drive or motivation for exercise and working out prior to your injury?
No.
No.
No. I was 33. And the other thing I love about Achilles is my daughter. She's very involved with anything that I do related to Achilles. So it's kind of the norm for her too. So people see her and I mean she knows. I know, like for the Houston Marathon, 1 year we were helping with the stuff, and she would like tell them, no, that is not how you handle the wheelchair, and it's just because she knows, and she's very cautious. And I just think it's wonderful that she enjoys the group just as much as I do. But
That's great. And Gloria, it's interesting to hear where you were in your life when you found Achilles, and listening to Francesco talk about he's always been fit and active, but has transitioned from powerlifting and weightlifting to running and triathlon, more of an endurance focus. Chloe, can you share with us a little bit about Leo, who hasn't been able to join us yet, but who you have run with? Because Leo has a little bit of a different background even from Francesco and Gloria, isn't that right?
Well, I mean, for me, he didn't go into his background too much, just that I knew that he told me he had done around 50 marathons when I met him, and that he loved to do triathlon. Like, he gave me one of the Achilles triathlon shirts once because I said like the t-shirt was a little hot. But he would go on like skiing trips, and he has a dog named Hermie, and he would take him everywhere. Even though Hermie didn't really listen, he would pull him across the street. But when we were running together, we would like make goals. So like we would hit like certain like he knows where everything is in Central Park. So like he would say, oh, the bathroom's coming up on your left, and I didn't even know that the bathroom was there. So like we would make goals to those. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't that familiar with Central Park when I started with Achilles, but he taught me like everything about it. And so we would just make goals, and then we would take walking breaks. He started to do a 5-minute run, 1-minute walk, but I just knew that he liked to also go skiing.
Yeah. And Francesco, how has the transition been for you to these virtual workouts?
Yeah, it's been really interesting because I'm on the team that records a lot of the virtual workouts that we produce. And so, pivoting from, I'm seeing these people multiple times a week to all of a sudden not seeing anyone and putting out all this virtual content, honestly was cool because it got me to evaluate my own coaching and teaching, because our workouts obviously need to be accessible, not just to those who are visually impaired through like very descriptive narration, but also to people with other disabilities. So trying to craft these workouts that were both functional and useful, but were also accessible was a challenge, and one honestly was pretty fun.
And what kind of feedback have you and the rest of the team at Achilles been receiving on these virtual trainings?
Yeah, honestly, it was really cool because from the time we shut down to the time that we started putting out these virtual videos, there was a little bit of a lull, obviously, as we all, gathered ourselves and figured out what to do. And during that time, I think a lot of our people were, a little removed from society, right? Everyone was quarantining at home, especially here in New York City. And so to have that social contact where you're watching the same videos and going through the same workouts as other people. We also have live workouts. We have, hangout calls and community calls. So just getting everyone involved again, it made such a huge difference for our folks, both from a, staying active and fit perspective, but also just from a community and social perspective.
Nice. And we've, heard from you, Francesco, as well from Gloria, the impact that Achilles has had on your own lives in sports. I mean, geez, Gloria, you said you've lost 70 pounds. since becoming active in Achilles, and that's just hats off. That's all I got to say about that. But we often hear so many times about the obesity rate among people with disabilities, especially people who are blind, and that leading to diabetic retinopathy and vision loss from diabetes being the leading cause of blindness and low vision in American adults, right? Not to mention the higher rates and risks of heart disease. So this is it's a really big issue, and it's really powerful, the work that Achilles is doing. Emily, I'm curious whether you hear many stories like this. You've only been in your current role for a year, but hearing stories like that and the impact that Achilles can have, what do you say about that?
Well, I think it's critical, the work that we do, and that we all sort of band together to accomplish. We know that this population is at risk for isolation and at risk for negative health outcomes, physical and mental. And to keep active, to help mitigate those negative health outcomes, and to keep connected to help mitigate that risk of isolation is what Achilles is all about. As Zoe said, the common theme that you've heard is just the bonds that are forged and the community that is developed, while staying active. And as Gloria said, making it fun, right? So it just makes me smile. It's what we're all about, is staying healthy together and staying unified, and having just this great big family. And we welcome so many more, and hope that there are listeners out there who will join us.
And I hope so. And we're also really excited that Achilles is going to join us next week for one of those virtual workouts that'll be led by Francesco. So in advance, thank you, Francesco.
I'm so excited.
And now, with Emily talking about forging these bonds and meeting new people, growing the Achilles community, hopefully we've got some folks here, Nat, who may want to ask some questions from the ACB family to the Achilles community.
Okay, let's see. If you, we do have raised hands. Awesome. For those who do not know how to raise your hand, if you are using the PC, it is Alt Y. If you are using a Mac, it is Options Y. If you called in on a telephone, it is *9. And if you're using the Zoom app, it is that awesome raise hand button.
and before we get to our first question, I know, Nat, that you wanted to have this one answered. So I'm curious, is napping a sport offered?
I appreciate it.
It is. And let me take this, because I actually had a stern lecture from my coach back when I first started training about the importance of sleep, and how I could do as much as I could, in the park or on the bike trainer. But if I didn't sleep or nap or recover enough, it'd all be useless. So yes, it is essential.
Got it. 12 hours of sleep on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Our first question is from Donna. Donna, you should be able to unmute and go ahead with your question.
Okay, this is Donna Brown from West Virginia. And the first thing I want to know, for our virtual workout next week, to get the most out of it, I'm an athlete, so I like to get the most out of every workout I do. So what would one need, or what would be best to have to be really ready to go to get something out of it?
Francesco, I know we haven't ironed out that level of detail yet.
Oh man!
Okay, not ironed out.
Okay. So the other question I have, I'm sure I know the answer to it. I live in a rural area. Unfortunately, I grew up in a metropolitan area, probably where there was a Achilles clubs, or maybe there are now, I don't know. But I'm sure where I am now, there probably isn't anything. But I'm just curious, when you do the triathlons, does the same person do all three parts with you?
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same guide for swim, bike, run, and
Right.
you stay tethered, or you ride a tandem for visually impaired
Right.
cyclists. And yeah, it's the same one, and you get to see them suffer through all three sports. So it's great.
Yeah, I've done sprint triathlons, and I unfortunately didn't have the same person. I wasn't able to have the same person, and so my results sort of really didn't count. They counted in my mind, but not in the real standings for that reason, because I didn't have the same person, for every event.
Yeah. Well, U.S. para triathlon is actually doing a lot recently in terms of increasing the para category within the U.S. So hopefully that continues to grow, and we get
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Donna. Our next question will be from Sharlene. Sharlene, you should be able to unmute and go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I have loved running and sports all my life. I was born blind, but I didn't get to Achilles until around 1988. And I found out about them. I'm not even sure how anymore. I wanted to enter the Los Angeles Marathon at the time. And the first one I actually did with my guide dog, because I didn't have a sighted guide. But after that, I heard about Achilles and I joined the chapter, and I was a member of that chapter for many, many years. I moved to Bend, Oregon here in the end of 2012. And as far as I know, we do not have an Achilles chapter. But I got to tell you, folks, I've met and stayed friends with some of the most wonderful people thanks to Achilles. I did my sprint triathlons with Achilles people. I've learned to long distance run, walk with Achilles people. And it's just been an absolutely wonderful, wonderful experience. So I am really thrilled to hear about the virtual workouts because I've been out of distance running and marathon running for a long time, except that I just now finished on my own and with a wonderful guide here in Bend, a 500-mile, 3-month-long trek up the coast of California. It was supposed to last from June 8 to September to Labor Day. I finished mine just last Friday, so not quite 10 weeks it took me to do it via treadmill and outside with my friend who guided me on the outside portions. I wanted to say that communication between athlete and guide, and guides of course are also athletes, is most important, and it is a two-way street. Your guide tells you all sorts of things to pick up your feet, whatever, but you also need to tell your guide what you are most comfortable with. Some people like to talk all the time while they're running or walking or whatever. Some people don't want much. They just want to enjoy the atmosphere and whatever. So it's important that the guide learns what you need most and how best to help you. My question basically is, are you going to do the New York City Marathon virtually this year?
So hey, Sharlene, congratulations. That is an amazing, amazing accomplishment. So just way to go. This is Emily. The New York City Marathon this year, there is going to be a virtual marathon offered by New York Road Runners. And I'm sure you can get the information on nyrr.org. Certainly reach out to us and we'd be happy to facilitate getting that information to you as well. But they will be offering it a virtual offering. We too right now are working on an Achilles race series for the fall, which we're really excited about, bringing our community together and all kinds of other wonderful participants. Hopefully we can include you, Sharlene, in that to keep people active and connected. And I also love that you have long-standing relationships from your time with the organization. That's it just, you know, speaks to the power of sports and this community.
Emily, when you hear stories like Charlene's and Donna as well, folks who lived in large metropolitan areas with Achilles chapters, who have moved to either smaller cities or more rural parts of the country that don't have Achilles chapters, does that plant a seed that, you know, the virtual trainings may be here to stay?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Clark. I mean, I think one thing that we have seen with our virtual workout offering, as well as the first virtual race, which we just hosted in July, is that, you know, we can reach so many people. We can bring so many people into our community and have them be active with us and join us. There are no geographic barriers. We don't worry about time zones, right? It's just, it becomes inclusive in all caps, you know, and in bold, and that's super powerful. And so, yes, I think we plan on having it stay around because we can reach so many people.
And Juan, what did you think hearing Sharlene talk about the relationships that she's built and kept in touch with folks? I mean, obviously you brought Gloria into Achilles, but do you have long-standing relationships with other athletes with whom you've done races and trained?
Yes, I do actually. I mean, it's hard. It's hard for you now. I mean, I've been a part of other groups before. I've done triathlons. I've done the Ironman, the 140. I've done plenty of marathons, ultra marathons, and I've also joined groups as I was training for those particular races. But Achilles just seems to be the one that I tend to connect with, because it just feels more. I don't know, like more self-fulfilling from a personal standpoint, because, you know, you have athletes that, you know, could easily say, well, I'm done, you know, or they can use their disability as an excuse to not even bother to walk, right? And when you, as a human being, have been blessed, you know, to be able to have a lot of the motor functions, right? You can't help but to like grab from the athletes that don't have, you know, that they need some special assistance to achieve those goals. So whether it's been Gloria, I do have other relationships that I've cultivated throughout, you know, my time with Achilles, and that's because you just feel a human connection that it goes beyond sports, goes beyond I'm going to do my first 5K. Or just, you know, do my first marathon. There's something unique about this entire group throughout just the formation of it that you want to be a part of and continue to be a part of long after you probably stop doing these sports. So it's just something very different, very unique.
Nice. Nat, do we have any other questions?
We do. All right, let's see. Liz, you should be able to unmute and go ahead with your question.
Hello, everyone. This is Liz. I actually just have a comment. I am a part of Achilles Connecticut, and Achilles as an athlete, and Achilles truly does change lives. I am no stranger to sports. I've played goalball, blind hockey. Yes, that's a sport. And I went from not thinking I would be able to run, not really having any interest in it, to 7 months later running my first 5K last summer. And I at this point have done, I think 4 or 5Ks, 2, maybe 1 4-mile race, 1 5-mile race. I did the Achilles, actually 3 regional Achilles Hope and Possibility fundraisers last year, and that's an Achilles fundraiser race. I did the New York one. That's amazing. And the New York Central Park team is fantastic. And it changes lives. And I did two of the races that I did last year. I ran with my guide dog, and that is, running with a human guide is a life-changing experience, but running in conjunction with a certified running guide, not advocating that everybody run with their guide dog, but running with your certified guide dog, as a running guide with human guides to kind of help you, direct the dog. And it definitely is a two-way street in terms of communication, but I don't have words for that. I really don't. Words fail, and just Achilles changes lives. So thank you, all of you on the panel. I don't want to forget anyone's name, so I'm not going to mention anyone. But thank you, truly. I really appreciate it.
Emily or Ellie, what do you say to that?
Thank you, Liz. That's amazing. And I let Ellie jump in.
Yeah, that is amazing. I think in New York, they don't let the dogs run. I'm not really sure. I think it's like against New York Roadrunners thing. But I guess if it's a short distance, it's okay. We at the New York City chapter workouts, we have people that mind the dogs so that they get a little bit of time off while you go for a run. But I guess it's like one of those things it's up to you, really, right?
Well, and especially now that schools like Guiding Eyes for the Blind are training specific running guide dogs, and their president and CEO has completed the New York City Marathon with a team of guide dogs a couple years ago. So it is a great avenue and outlet for folks who want to pursue that. Any more now?
So he had to like switch out every 6 miles or so. He had to switch out to a different dog.
Yes.
So that was, yes.
And I think that's for the dogs.
A lot of coordinating.
Well.
We have no more questions.
No more questions. Okay, so in chat, I see there's 2 questions. One was, how do you get a chapter in your area when there is not currently one? So I would suggest that you join Achilles, and I can put the URL into this chat box, and you can fill out our intake form, and then I will know that you are there. And if there's one nearby, perhaps, hook you up with someone from there. We also have a pretty big database. So, people know people, and we'll chat, and we'll see if there's something we can do for you. There are times when there really isn't anyone in the database. And in that case, I often will recommend United in Stride, just to go there and sign up. So those are the various options, but keep trying, and I will put the URL into the chat box. And that there is a second question.
That's Achilles International.
The URL, I believe, is achillesinternational.org /athlete-intake. But I'll put it in there. Esther A says, we are very new to Achilles. My son has, I think I need eyeglasses. My son has an evening exercise buddy. Is there a list of what is available for kids and families in New York City? There actually, I don't think there is. I think I will put the phone number in for Achilles International, and your phone number, you can leave the phone number and we'll get back to you on that. You know,
Ellie,
it's
for
kind
the
of very protective
folks
of the
who are
kids,
listening on
and
ECB
still
radio,
there's a bit of a vetting process. Pardon?
for the folks who are listening on ACB radio or on the phone, what is the phone number for Achilles International?
It's 212-354-0300.
Great.
And we do have another raised hand, Clark.
Sure.
All right. Jael, you should be able to unmute and go ahead with your question.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for hosting this topic and this organization, because I've been hearing about it off and on for a number of years now. But it's one of those things where you hear about, you're interested, and you kind of forget about it. But I have a question. I'm getting into walking more, and I'd like to eventually get into some short runs and some other sports. But I have a double disability. I'm also hard of hearing. What kind of experiences do any of you or Achilles have with anyone who is blind and has a hearing impairment?
Yeah, I can take that question if that's all right. So one of my really good friends is deafblind, and her name's Hannah. She's a very competitive triathlete. And so we've talked a lot about how she likes being guided and all the things that go into that. Obviously it's possible. The only sort of caveat I would say is you just have to be a little bit more upfront with your guide about what kind of communication you like. So I know what she likes to do, because she'll run with, brand new guides almost every week just because she likes meeting new people. And so the only thing she'll say is if, she'll go through a checklist of little key points, like if there's a loud truck nearby, it might disorientate her a little bit. So they have a very simple system of hand signs that the guide will, so if the guide is on the athlete's right side, the left hand of the guide will go on the right hand of the athlete and, either make a finger sign, hold up one finger or two fingers to mean different things. And that's how usually how that works. On a tandem bike, it's usually done by hand taps, reaching behind you and tapping the handlebars of the athlete in front of you. But even, just walking or jogging, it's honestly doing it, figuring out what you prefer, and just being comfortable to communicate that with your guide.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Zoe, Chloe, or Juan, anything that you all would like to add about training with folks with multiple disabilities or deafblind, anything on that topic?
Yeah, I was just going to echo what Francesco and everyone else has said, but I think so much of it is just getting to know the person you're running with and having that communication, and as an athlete being okay just to tell your guide what you want and what you need, and then as a guide not being afraid of communicating that back and what you need. And that's kind of the easiest way to learn and grow together. And that's just kind of how we figure it out. Also, not to be afraid of making mistakes, because you're going to make them. Both the guides and the athletes are going to mess up, and you just laugh it off and you go on to the next thing, and you end up having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I will have to agree with the last part of it, having a lot of fun. The last athlete that I guided was actually for the Houston Marathon in January. And one thing I learned about the Houston Marathon is be ready to adapt to the Mother Nature, because that particular race, the athlete that I was guiding, Yeah, we had, everything coordinated. Every time we made a turn, I would tap his shoulder to kind of steer him to make the turn. But the one thing that I never expected was the headwind that we encounter for the Houston Marathon. And for us who live in Houston, that's very unique experience because, we're very flat. And there's a reason why we have our marathon in January, because that's actually probably the most seasonable weather you can run in. But I've done the Houston Marathon about 3 other times, but this was the first time that we had a strong headwind the entire route. So having to guide someone presented a different challenge, but also an opportunity to, like Zio said, laugh it off, because we were struggling the entire time. But at the very end, I'm like, I cannot believe I just did this along with my athlete as well too. So it was very, very interesting. So yeah, just the element, Mother Nature, be prepared, because I don't care how much you train with your guide, but Mother Nature tends to have her own thing on race day. So yeah.
All right, Nat, anyone else?
I do see we have people in the chat. I'm so sorry, you guys. We don't usually use that, but for blind, I do see that someone asked, for blind runners, what are the tethers made out of, and how do you guys run, if it's side by side or?
Yeah, so there's a few very simple. So you can make them out of anything. My favorite tether is a waist tether. So there's a waistband that you can buy at any running shop, or even just a piece of bungee rope around my waist. The other loop is around my guide's waist, and there's a piece of rope attaching my hip to my guide's hip. So literally joined at the hip, as Zoe likes to say. There are hand tethers where it's literally just a shoelace or a rope, or my buddy Andrew likes a plastic bag. You just hold one end in one hand, the other end the other hand. It could be super low tech, but the athlete and guide usually run side by side, unless you are trail running, in which case the guide can be in front of the athlete, and then you would hold like a rigid pole, like a hiking pole or a cane even, and that to run in line in like a single track race. But that's more rare. Usually it's side by side, grabbing onto some, like a piece of rope.
Yeah, and for the tether, I would just add, in terms of like running at the same pace and the motion, you just kind of figure it out based on your running style. I've run with people on hand tethers where the best way to do is to try and like sync our arm motions up together, and then I run with people where that doesn't really matter. Or when I run with Francesco on the waist tether, if one of us gets too far ahead, then one of us is just going to sort of bungee cord back, usually me because I'm smaller. So it's just practice, but you can really use anything. I've seen everything being used as a hand tether.
Yeah, in New York City, there's a hierarchy of shopping bags. So if you like shop at different stores, those are like different quality hand tethers. It's like a Dwayne Reed bag is a higher quality than a Rite Aid bag.
And someone else asked in the chat if you guys can give that number that you guys gave out earlier one more time, please.
Ellie, the phone number for Achilles?
Yes, it's 212-354-0300. That's 212-354-0300.
Awesome. And that is all for questions, Clark.
All right, Nat, thank you so much for your I just have a couple more questions. So first, Zoe, you talked about grew up in mistakes. Can you all still hear me?
Sorry, I think you might have said my name, but could you repeat
okay, sorry about
question?
that. Yeah, on the topic of making mistakes, what are some of the biggest mistakes that Francesco's made while running?
Oh, that is, where do I start? I mean, I think with Francesco and I, we've run together and swam together so much. We have not yet biked together because there's a little bit of a height difference and we haven't figured out how to get the bike seats right yet. I don't know, Francesco, what are the biggest mistakes you've made?
Run with you. No.
Rude.
No, come up with good enough one-liners.
Yeah, my biggest mistake with Francesco was not learning until we were at mile 9.5 marathon that he really dips into the bad puns when he gets tired. So I think we spent 5 minutes with, I think there's some up dog on your sleeve. I almost left him there. But no, I think it's coming in, just having an open mind and knowing there's going to be mistakes. Maybe you'll forget to tell somebody else there's a turn. I'm sure I've run him into the curb a couple times. But none of it's bad. It's all just part of the learning experience, and it's all part of the fun.
That's great. And Gloria, before we go here, as a wheelchair athlete and racer, what role does a guide or support runner play for you?
Well, when Juan was my guide for the New York, he obviously was my first marathon, and just basically the turns. Obviously, we're in Houston, so we're flat. New York was a lot of up and down. So he basically also, just if anybody was in front of me or anything, or if I needed, he also got me my water when I needed water. So basically just also being an extra pair of eyes for me.
That's great. Well, again, for everyone out there listening, as well as those participating here on the Zoom webinar, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone from Achilles International for the work that you do and for sharing your stories with us here tonight. And thank you in advance, Francesco, for the workout that you'll lead next week. And we'll be sure to get as many people to that as we can, as well as share some information so that Donna will have her mat, her kettlebells, bungee cords, and everything else ready to go. And if folks have any additional questions for Achilles, you can email me, and we'll use the advocacy@acb.org. Again, advocacy@acb.org. And I will be happy to pass those questions along. So to Emily and Ellie and the whole crew, thank you so much. Emily, if there's anything you'd like to add before we sign off here?
I'd just like to thank you, Clark, and again, Eric Bridges, for inviting us to be a part of this conversation this evening. We hope that your listeners and some of the audience will join us either online, taking part in our virtual workouts that you can find on our website, achillesinternational.org, or eventually, when we are able to do so safely, join us out in a park for a workout. You know, we'd love to just have you join our fun. And if there's not a chapter in your area, reach out to us and we'll get to work and seeing if we can't make something happen there. So just, you know, thank you, Clark, for inviting us to be here.